Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Sari Monison, and I am the Program Coordinator of Lasting Impressions here at DOROT. Welcome, and thank you all so much for coming to our special program today, Stoop Stories, Memories of Growing Up in Your Neighborhood. Before we begin, I'd like to say just a couple of words to take a moment to acknowledge the current situation in Israel and what an emotionally challenging time this has been for so many. I'm so thankful that with everything that's been going on, that we have this opportunity to be in this space and connect with one another. We are grateful to have you all in our DOROT community. So I'll just go over a couple of housekeeping items as usual. So please remain muted if you have any background noise, and use the chat for any questions, thoughts, or comments that you have during the presentation. And to initiate captions on Zoom, please select More and select Captions on the bottom of your Zoom screen. You might also have a note that says CC for closed captioning that you can also click on. I know everybody's computers look a little bit different. We will also have plenty of time after Marj's presentation for additional Q&A and discussion. I will also share our DOROT community agreements and guidelines that we use during our Zoom programming. So we will raise our hand to be called on before speaking. So on Zoom, you can use the hand symbol or physically raise your hand on camera, and I will make sure to keep an eye out for anyone who is doing that. Please remain muted while others are speaking. Listen openly to one another. Please be present and be aware of our surroundings. So if you're multitasking, please turn off your camera and mute yourself to allow others to focus on the program. We embody DOROT's values of compassion and respect in our interactions and discussions with one another. Refrain from making assumptions or generalizations about each other. We prioritize confidentiality and foster a safe and inclusive space where the diversity of our backgrounds, cultures, and identities are honored and acknowledged. And we will reach out to DOROT staff with any questions or feedback. And now it is my pleasure to officially introduce our presenter. Marj Kleinman is a visual storyteller and the creator of Stoop Stories. A lifelong Brooklynite residing in her childhood brownstone, she has years of stoop sitting under her belts. In addition to photography, Marj has more than 20 years of experience as a children's content writer, content producer, and writer, creating award-winning educational media with PBS Kids, Sesame Workshop, Scholastic, and Noggin. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Time Out New York, PBS Parents, and Scary Mommy. She was also a contributing writer and photographer for Toca Boca magazine, exploring the power of play and creativity in childhood. Marj holds an MA in Educational Psychology from New York University and a BS in Theater Management from Emerson College. She has taught theater to kids and photography to grown-ups. Marj is a mom to a very feisty black cat named Blackberry. We are also joined by Andrea A. Resendez Gomez, who is the Media and Production Coordinator at Stoop Stories. So let's go ahead and give them a warm welcome. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you so much, Sari. And I'm so grateful to DOROT. I just love all of the work that you do. And I've gotten to meet so many of you at the Generations United conference recently and other intergenerational programs. And I'm just really, really grateful to be here with all of you. So I had put together this little fun selection of our images with some beautiful quotes about stoop life. And I saw a lot of questions and notes about stoop sitting and stoop life in the chat earlier. We're going to get to talk about lots of stuff, and you're going to get to share your own stories towards the end. So really glad that you guys are all here. So I'm Marj. I'm the founder of Stoop Stories, and that is me as a baby on my stoop. And believe it or not, I still live in this brownstone. I'm sitting in here today in Boerum Hill, Brooklyn, near downtown Brooklyn. I'm going to share the story of how Stoop Stories began and how we've grown up until now. And so I'll do a little bit of overview about Stoop Stories while showing you our photo collection. And I'm going to actually show you a very special sneak peek to one of our short films. It's about 5 minutes. You're going to be some of the first people to see it. And then we'll do a discussion about memories of growing up on your stoop or any special spot that you had in your neighborhood, whether it was in New York or anywhere else, New York or beyond. So, and I want to just acknowledge my team. So I started out doing this by myself, but by no means still am. We've grown a lot. We have a whole collective of artists and photographers and filmmakers and writers. And this is Andrea up here, who's helping us today, sharing some links and info on the chat, and manages our social media. I don't think anyone else from the team is on, but if you are, shout out to you. Yeah, it's a great, and we're always looking to grow our collective. So if anyone wants to get involved, let us know. Okay, so Stoop Stories is a documentary storytelling project where we connect neighbors on their stoops in New York and share stories together. And we really celebrate New Yorkers and stoop culture overall. In fact, we're really trying to revive stoop culture in a way it has eroded over the years, as many of you may have noticed. And, you know, it's part of a safer, thriving community when you have people sitting on their stoops. I think it was Jane Jacobs who said the stoops were the eyes of the streets. So in addition to reducing isolation through connection, you know, it's a way of having safer neighborhoods and communities. So back again to the beginning, my family on my brownstone stoop in 1971, I look younger than I am. My dad on his stoop in the Bronx as a baby, and then him on this current stoop here now, and my mom in front of our house. Sadly, I've lost both my parents at this point, and so this is my way of sharing their legacy, of carrying on their legacy. And I actually had the idea in 2011 to do Stoop Stories. I interviewed my dad and his friends and neighbors on their stoops in the neighborhood to preserve our stories. And it got put on a shelf like so many projects do. But cut to the beginning of lockdown in 2020, everyone was so isolated, including myself. I was solo quarantining. And I thought at that point, I was a photographer. I thought I'll go out and do some family portraits. So we started photographing families and asking them about their experiences during COVID and sharing their stories from the stoops of Brooklyn at the beginning, and then eventually all throughout New York. So since April 2020, we've shared hundreds of stories. These are some of my favorites that I'm sharing here. We started mainly on Instagram, and so it was a photograph. These are the grandmas of Herkimer Street in Ocean Hill, Brooklyn, near Bed-Stuy. And this is a written story about them, and we really quote our neighbors directly. We do we edit the stories down from original interviews. And we started on Instagram, but now we're on many platforms, and we're doing in-person programs as well. So that's very exciting. These are my very own neighbors a couple blocks away on Pride. It was the anniversary of Stonewall, actually, a couple of years ago. Tim and Raphael. These are more families. And as you can see from the sidewalk, a stoop, we like to say a stoop is a state of mind. So you might not have a stoop, right? But you still got your stories. So we've been to fire escapes, sidewalks, all over. This is Miss Jacqueline up here. And when she saw we were doing a DOROT event today, she said she was sorry she couldn't come, but she's actually done programs with DOROT and was really thrilled to see us doing this. Shout out to Miss Jacqueline. We also interviewed a lot of essential workers in 2020. This is Kiefer, very popular. One of our stories, a postal worker who was on his route. And I was like, can you please just sit with us and chat for a bit what it's like for you right now? You know, he was working 7 days a week without hazard pay, I think they called it. And, you know, we wanted to make sure his story was told. And he has just a killer smile. We love Kiefer. And we also met with healthcare workers, local pharmacists, you know, to hear their experiences. This is a woman one of many in New York, who organized meals for hospitals, for hospital workers at Stronger Together Brooklyn. And then we also started featuring small business owners. So this on the top is Wing on Woe, is one of the oldest, or the oldest shop in Chinatown. We were really thrilled to do their story. And we later did the newest shop in Chinatown, You and Me Books, which was kind of fun. This was photographed by, because eventually it wasn't just me, it was a whole team. Phoenix Robles photographed this lovely woman at Harlem Cycle, the owner of Harlem Cycle. And this is just an example of some of the, you may have seen during the pandemic, a lot of people performing on stoops. So the stoop is also a stage, right? It's a stage for performance, for activism. It's a place to connect. There's so many things that the stoop can be. So we try to celebrate that. And this is the lovely Kendra J. Bostock, who formerly Kendra J. Ross, dancer, who organizes a big event every summer called the Stoops Bed-Stuy Art Crawl. And she's really just a major community builder. We partner with her a lot, and now she's one of our advisors. And we all love block parties, right? So this is just a couple of the block parties we've done. And this is one block party that had become a huge hit. It's called St. James Joy in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, where they did a dance party. It was just an hour, I think an hour or two a night, but every night for a while, and then every week. It was a way that people let off steam outside safely during COVID. Yeah. Oh, I love this mother-daughter and these guys in Flatbush. So you can see all of our stories, almost all of our stories on our website. If Andrea wants to share the link in the chat, we have a selection of our stories on the website, and we have a complete set on Instagram if you're on there. We're always adding more to the website. And then I just want to point out, we also we try to amplify stories that are really important, that need to be heard, or from underrepresented communities. So illegal evictions have been rampant, particularly among older adults. And we did this story, this little short video about Mr. Ray Cortez, who's facing eviction in Park Slope. And he is actually still fighting this deed fraud case. And if you want to see that video, I think Andrea can share the link to that. Mr. Cortez is I think he's now 89 and just a sweetheart. He's a painter. And it's just a beautiful little story. So we try to get attention on stories that matter. And in fact, we also heard that people were really struggling in the NYCHA houses. So we met these wonderful families over there during the pandemic. There were, the conditions over there can be really rough. This was in Red Hook, and many homes had no stoves, no heat. They were still doing construction from Sandy, which is, over 10 years ago. So we wanted to make sure that their stories were told, but not just the challenging sides of it, but also what made these people, feel joy and pride in their neighborhoods, what they loved about living at NYCHA. This family here, Leslie talked about, you have all kinds of assumptions about living in the projects, but I've lived here all my life and I love it. So there are challenges, but, she shared a lot about the positive sides of it. And I love that I'm still in touch with, I DM all the time. I direct message with Amy here in the window. So this is we've made a lot of friends throughout the years through Stoop Stories. This is Lori Siegel. I don't know if any of you know her, but she lives on the Upper West Side. And yes, she's a wonderful novelist and amazing woman. She was a survivor on the Kinder Transport. And so we shared her story about her struggle in the Holocaust and surviving that. And she and her mother survived. And Lori, she's just wonderful. And if you want more information about this, if you want to see Lori's stories, we can share those with you. And this is Queen Jean. She leads a movement for Black trans liberation. She's a costume designer and a trans woman. And this is actually the stoop right outside of Stonewall, of the Stonewall protests. And Queen is just an incredible woman. She led protest for a solid year. Every night, even when it was 10 degrees, raining, snowing, she was out there leading protests. So she's just an amazing activist that we support. And this is the Resistance Revival Chorus. I don't know if anyone has heard of them. They use song and music to protest and show up for issues that they care about. And this was right before the election. So the focus of this, we did a little song on the stoop. The focus was getting out the vote. So now just to segue into our intergenerational focus, we have always looked for ways to connect generations. And this is one of my favorite portraits in Bed-Stuy. This is Tiffany, her son. And the portrait is of her aunt who lived in this home. This was her aunt's house. So it's 3 generations on the stoop. It tells the story. She knows that she's carrying on her aunt's legacy in this house. And my gosh, I could not have controlled the sun, the way that the sun is coming out. It's just a very lucky, intentional style that came out of this. I love this shot. Yeah. And this is also an example of many generations on the stoop. We have grandma on the bottom stoop, the parents in the middle, and the kids, the new generation on the top. And I just love that, especially the parents and grandma were all immigrants. I'm sorry for not naming every name. Laurence, I'm going to blank out on some people's names. So I'm not going to name everybody, but these kids are like, New York born and taking the world by storm. In fact, it was Simon's birthday. This is Simon up here. And this was literally a few days after George Floyd had been killed. And he had painted this mural on the wall about George Floyd. And just really, it was such a beautiful act of love and celebration of this and an honor of this man. And this family just has been very generous, sharing their stories with us. So the goal with our intergenerational stories are really to connect seniors and youth, obviously, and also celebrate neighborhood culture and community that needs to be preserved. So this is our most exciting, I hope you can see, all of that. So we created an intergenerational film series recently. Our pilot film was funded by Brooklyn Arts Council with Harmonica Jimmy and Shania. And we will be premiering it soon. We're going to share the link. We have a big film screening in Park Slope, Brooklyn at Heights and Hills, Park Slope Center for Successful Aging next week. We will give you all the details, but we'll be sharing this film. It's about 13 minutes. And this is the second film that we made this summer with Sue and Robert, who are in Flatbush. And this was funded entirely by our community. In fact, our community also funded part of the pilot. It's amazing how much a short film can cost. So everyone chipped in. It was really we're very grateful. And the idea was to pair a neighborhood elder with a younger person to preserve the story and connect them and sort of have an experience together throughout their day. So so there's a free public film screening. As I said, it's next week, Wednesday the 15th in Park Slope, Brooklyn. I know that's a bit of a trek for some of you, many of you, but you're welcome to join us. Andrea will share the link. And I have this is the second film. And I'm going to actually give you guys more than a sneak peek. I'm going to play the entire film for you. So this is about 5 minutes. And I'm going to switch to that screen. Hold on. And we'll just play this out and come back, and then we'll wrap up shortly after and go to, can you all see the black right now? The black screen? Cool. And then we will go into our discussion. Yeah, so here we go. This is Stoop Stories, Sue and Robert.
I used to make fun of old ladies that wore socks under their shirts. And now here I am. The heat. Oh my God. Oh, what happened? What did I do? Who says there is no climate problem? Oh my God.
That's why I lost my voice. Combination of heat,
Air conditioning.
heat, air conditioning.
So we actually met just a few years ago, so we're
Yes.
not old friends, but
Old soul.
new friends.
Old soul.
We found a common ground
Yes.
at 7/7. 7th, 17th, the 27th
Right.
of every month.
Yeah.
7 people
Yeah.
do
Love
something
Love that.
for 7 minutes.
Yes.
And it's timed, and we tell them when it's finished, and we either love it or hate it. Your poetry is so wonderful.
Thank you.
Last night, Harlem called me, and it was all rhythm. It was Paris Blue of Nina and Langston Hughes walking up the block of 137th and Lennox. Last night.
So what are you doing now? You're still writing, you're
Yes.
teaching. Where?
Well, I worked at 2 senior centers this spring, creative, bringing creative writing, theater, storytelling to the senior population, the senior centers in the Brooklyn area.
In this neighborhood, some of the older people, older than me,
Right.
they have such wonderful stories about their countries where they come
Amazing.
from, you know, Barbados, Grenada,
Everywhere.
Haiti, everywhere. We have something called Voices of Lefferts that puts out a
I think the volume just cut out
Storytelling.
of the video.
kind of.
Oh, there it is.
No, I'm not a poet, and I'm not a poetry.
But you love jazz.
I love jazz. I do a newsletter that comes out once or twice a week. I try as much as possible to list local jazz. I had a club in the 60s
Where,
in the West Village, all the way over on 10th Avenue in the middle of the meat market. We had a nice little place called the Needle's Eye. And I couldn't even start to tell you who I met, who I know. My favorite singers were Betty Carter and Sheila Jordan and Dakota Staten and all the pianists played at my club. Everybody.
wow.
Cedar Walton, McCoy Tyner, all of
Oh,
them. when they
McCoy
were-
Tyner is
when
like
they
one of my
were
favorite.
starting out. So this is the 60s. And then I went to Barbados. And I thought we were going to stay for a year.
I was
We stayed 40 years.
40 years.
40 years. This neighborhood was the most comfortable place I found with my 40 years in the West Indies. How are you?
Waiting for yourself.
How are you keeping? You right? How you doing? It's the largest collection of Caribbean people
Right.
outside of the Caribbean.
That's what I love about this neighborhood.
That is called slapping doms, playing dominoes. Slapping doms. Hi. Those are tourists.
Some of the greatest gifts Flatbush has given to me is the cultural diversity, parades, music, the food. Those are the great, wonderful things about it.
We could go to Culpeper
How far is Culpeper?
on the corner.
Okay.
Rice and peas, plantain, sweet potato, macaroni. And this is a local drink. It's delicious. It's called Marby. Give me an oxtail roti to go. Okay, thanks. So this is a roti. Oxtail is wrapped in a dough, curry, delicious. This is enough for 3 meals. Okay, darlings, bye-bye. All the best. It's a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
It is.
It is.
Well, that is, thank you. Thank you. I'm letting the credits roll just because I feel like they deserve here, let me go back to the slides. Are we back? Yes. Thank you so much for watching. It makes me smile every time because Sue is hilarious. And Robert Anthony as well, who did not tell me he had lost his voice the night before the shoot. It's been a really wonderful experience. And Ben Ginsberg, who is just out of film school, shot and edited this with me. And this is how community comes together to tell these stories. So one of the things I want to mention is we started doing programs this summer, and we held 2 intergenerational workshops at Heights and Hills in Park Slope, where we're having the screening. And we thought that it would be a nice sort of organic way to authentically collect stories for the films. So this was done before the films as sort of inspiration. And oh yes, that is sort of the bulk of my presentation. So this is one way you can keep in touch with us. You can sign up for our Stoop Alerts monthly newsletter to see what's new. But now we want to get into that was out of order. Now we want to hear your Stoop stories. Now we want to have a virtual chat, a virtual Stoop chat, if you will.